do. Man, I really don't know how to start this. Fuck it, do it live. Hey, howdy, hey, welcome there, everybody. I don't know how to start this shit, so howdy. My name is Jordan, Jordan Hawk. Uh, I'm also known by my title. It's right there on my YouTube username, The Rage Master. I make music. I make video games. I also, on occasion, do a little bit of comedy let's plays on YouTube. And this is the start of something I have been considering for a very, very large portion of my life and just never got around to doing. Um, but recently, one of my biggest role models on that got me into even wanting to do YouTube in the first place passed away. A lot of you may know him as Adam the Woo. He was a YouTube vlogger that it's kind of unfair, I guess you could say, to him to just say he was like a Disney vlogger because he would kind of explore all over the place, abandoned buildings, just random towns, and I always wanted to, I always looked up to him. I basically grew up watching his stuff because he started when I was fresh out of high school. So most of my adult life, I've followed him, and he passed away recently, a few weeks ago, um, and I took it pretty hard. He was one of those people that was part of my daily ritual, my daily routine, and his passing left a big hole in my life. So I figured, because his thing was always, if you got the mind to do it, do it. So I figured I'd fill that hole with my own, following not necessarily in tribute, but partially in tribute to the man himself. So this will be the start, the very first of what I'm wanting to turn into a daily routine for me, where I typically I would take you guys out on walks and shit like that with me, but I've had a bit of a busy day and I've been running around doing all sorts of shit all day long, and it's starting to get late. And I live in the Salt Lake City area, and for anyone who's from there, you guys know once it starts getting dark during the wintertime, it is frigid. So I'd rather not. So no walking around talking today. This is probably even going to be a shorter one than what I'm planning on doing with these, because I want to do whole uncut, doing it live, no cuts or anything. Just taking y'all out with me, getting a piece of my mind, just let me talk about whatever's on my mind for the day and bringing you all with me for the walk. And if you like what I got to talk about, if you vibe with me, then cool. If you don't, then cool. I don't really give much of a shit anyway. I'm doing this for me more than anything else. I'm not really much of a documenter. There's a lot of my life that I can only tell through word of mouth, through hearsay. I can't. I have no documentation, no proof to. I'm a hell of a storyteller. Don't get me wrong, but it's all I got is my stories, and so I wanted to be able to have something to some physical memories to put to those stories from now on, and that's a big part of the reason why I'm doing this, so I can have stuff to look back on someday and remind myself that I did in fact live through all of that. I've had quite a few, I ironically and coincidentally enough, ever since Adam passed away, I have had quite a few different experiences of my life where I've reconnected with people from my past, and it's weird to just go back and think about things and remember that I lived that all those memories of mine are not just stories. So I wanted to have memories to go with those stories. Um, but as I said, This is going to be a daily thing. I'm just going to be talking about any kind of random shit. I'm a very creative guy, so most of my content's probably going to be relating to something I'm working on or something that I've got cooking up in my big old brain of mine. Um, but yeah, so as I stated, I'm a video game creator, indie video game creator. I have yet to actually release publicly, at least release any of my projects. I've a lot of my stuff throughout my life. I've been a very private person, even when it came to my music, and it's only been the last couple of years of my life that I've decided to try and step out and show what I've got, rather than just keeping it all to myself. Um, and So I haven't really ever released anything publicly. People who already do follow me on my various social medias know about some of the things that I've got cooking up right now, some of the projects that I've been working on for years and years and years upon years upon years upon years. These stories that I have for my video games are basically my life's work. They're all stories that I have been developing literally since I was about 10 years old, and just continuously upgrading them, updating them as I gone on through life. And eventually it grew to where all these individual stories that I just never felt like they needed something, you know, they needed to connect to something bigger and greater, but I could never really find the pieces until I set them all side by side next to each other, metaphorically speaking, and looked at the threads that could connect each and every single one of them. And before I knew it, I had a whole, not even just a multiverse, an omniverse of different stories. And I say omniverse because included within that omniverse are fan projects. I am going to include within that omniverse too, that do tie in with other IPs that are not mine, but those are things that I would probably hold off on until slash unless, I'm not even going to say unless, until the day I can effectively collaborate something like that. Those will stick in the back of my back pocket, stay on the back burner. But it all cultivated into one giant overarching narrative that has grown so far beyond anything. I can't even contain it anymore. So I'm kickstarting it now. Not literally. I do want to start a Kickstarter campaign for it to get it funded. But for now, I am working on those projects, only using stuff like RPG Maker, Game Maker, freeware stuff, or cheap stuff that I know how to use. I'm I say I'm a video game creator, but I'm more of a storyteller that knows how to play with Legos. And that's all video game development really is. When you've got all the assets to be able to put it together, it is just like taking action figures. Like when you're a kid, you set the scene with all your action figures and all that shit. It's basically that. I mean, I know that's what making movies is even like too. From personal experience, I've done some indie projects again that were never really released publicly. It was all private projects, but um, I've I'm more of a producer, I guess you could say, producer slash storyteller. But I'm working all on my own, so I kind of got to do it all. So because I am not very technologically skilled when it comes to coding, um, and I don't have the patience to sit down and learn, and because I'm not very artistically gifted in the realm of graphical arts, I am instead using what is available to me. And I know there are certain tools with Unreal Engine, but again, that requires a lot more understanding with how coding works than I have the time to really put into learning right now. So, because I just got too much shit going on. Besides all this shit, I'm a single dad half the time. We split custody 50-50 with me and his mom. But I'm even when he's not with me, I'm a full-time dad. So there's just not a lot of time in my day, with everything else I've got going on, to be able to sit down and learn something like that. Um, I I'm rolling out right now the very first public release, and it took me a while to decide which one I wanted to start with. I wanted to kind of At first I wanted to kind of do like a Kojima approach where it started halfway through the story and then it would go back in time and retrace things, but in a way where you didn't really know it was retracing the history of the omniverse that I've created. And then until the very end of the story where it would finally come together, and that's like, oh my god, this is where it all started. I'm just going canonical with it now. Very first project I will be rolling out is called The Vengeful Spectre. It is a an original superhero IP that I'm creating based off of my own inspirations and influences growing up. I've always been a huge Marvel and DC fan, as well as anything that Todd McFarlane puts out. So Spawn played a very, 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 very heavy bit of influence in the creation of this character. Um, his design as well. I might even just throw up some graphics every here and there, just to, while I'm talking, just to show you guys a bit of the project, what I've got right now. It will be made. I'm making it using RPG Maker MV, but I am I'm going in the route of trying to develop it as a side scroller beat 'em up RPG that will alternate between different sets of stages. We've got action stages, which will be the side scroller beat 'em up style kind of games, like the old arcade games you've ever played, the X-Men arcade game, or the old Spider-Man arcade game where you got one character, or you can play co-op as well and run across the stage and beat up, very, very simple, very straight to the point. You traverse certain areas of the stage, and then it'll lock you in place. You got to beat up on certain waves of enemies, and then you proceed forward. And then the secondary sets of stages I will be implementing are exploration / investigation stages, which are going to be more in the style of a traditional RPG in terms of navigation and exploration. But the combat in those stages will be something a little similar to, if you guys ever played The Legacy of Goku on the Game Boy Advance, any of those games. That's where I took influence for how I wanted to approach those stages. I have as well gone through and taken a bunch of my character concept arts, concept designs and final designs. I use a lot of generators to put together a lot of my character designs because, again, I'm not very artistically adept. So, and I've probably been showing those off already for you guys anyway. But I've taken a few of those and I've kind of ran them through some AI. I don't like using AI. I don't really condone it, but with the way I am stuck, limited to just me, myself, and I working on this shit, I might as well take advantage of it, necessary evil, if you will. Um, so I've ran a bunch of those designs and concepts, and as well as some scenes, some conceptual artwork for scenes and stuff through AI generators, just to show what that game could look like on Unreal Engine. Were they on 5 now? So I don't have any tangible character models or anything. Those are all just processed. They're concepts of what the game could look like if my Kickstarter campaign that I am going to be starting very, very soon, once I have a little bit more of the basic version of the game I am developing right now done, I will be starting that Kickstarter campaign, trying to get it funded. And if I can get the funding I need to be able to, get together a whole team of me, and a team to me can be 3 people, you know, um, bigger projects have been made with fewer people, you know what I mean? But I would like to make that game something similar to like how the Batman Arkham games are. That's what my actual vision for this game was, but because I'm limited to what I know how to do, I'm taking it back to what I grew up on, and doing some retro modern stuff with it. It will, even the retro basic version of the game I am developing right now will implement stuff like modern cinematic style instrumental music, cinematic soundtrack of, as close. It's not going to be something like a fucking Hollywood movie, but I've found quite a few, at least, like, because I'm broke, free assets for music that are cinematic enough to be able to tell the story I want to tell. If I get the budget for it, it will be a metal fucking rock opera, though, in terms of the soundtrack. It'll be fucking awesome. I've got a whole soundtrack for the vision of the project already set aside. That is on my YouTube channel, actually. If anybody wants to check it out, it's the Vengeful Spectre concept soundtrack playlist. I've got a whole shitload of songs that I have put aside that I would like to use for the game if I can actually manage to get money for licensing. Um, with artists, including, but not limited to, Slipknot, Ice Nine Kills, Dance with the Dead, Judas Priest, so on and so forth. It's big dreaming there, that's a big shot in the dark dream right there. But if I can make it the way I want to make it, those are the songs I'd like to use. Let's see. That's basically it for that project. So besides talking about the story of it, the story of the Vengeful Spectre, it follows it's my self-insert, guys. If you guys are gonna give me shit for it, you better give Spider-Man some shit too, because Spider-Man was Stan Lee's self-insert. Everybody loves Spider-Man. If you want to go even further back, Superman was a dual self-insert, taking two parts of the creators of Superman and combining it into one person. It's every artist has a way of doing their self-inserts. There's the tasteful way where they don't try and make their character so forced to be, like a likable, relatable character. They do so naturally. They just let their writing do the talking, and that's what I'm doing with my character. Follows a character named Jonathan Hawkins, who sets off prior to the game's beginning to embark on his own vigilante-style justice campaign. By the way, I'm in my basement. You guys are in my basement with me right now. That's unfinished basement room. And I don't want to go outside. It's cold. So it follows Jonathan Hawkins. He sets off leading up right to the start of the game. He's been running around doing his own vigilante style campaign, stopping street level crimes all throughout the Salt Lake. I based it in Salt Lake City, and but there's anyone who has ever been to Salt Lake City or knows of, or lives here, whatever. Y'all know that when Salt Lake is referred to, it's a very fucking big area. Everybody just dumbs it down to just Salt Lake. I know that's what it's like for any kind of major city, any metropolitan area across the country, but Salt Lake is fucking huge. Salt Lake City itself, not so much, but the rest of the fucking areas that connect to Salt Lake City, the greater Salt Lake area, the whole northern Utah fucking area of it's all considered Salt Lake. So when I say Salt Lake, most of the game takes place At the very beginning of it, at least, it takes place in Ogden, Utah. Anyone who's been to Ogden knows it's kind of a shithole when it comes to crime. Um, and also and all sorts of problems. It's always been kind of the wild man's paradise. Even it was the one place that Al Capone was too afraid to come back to. So tells you a little bit about Ogden. So where's my? I don't give a shit if I get age restricted for vaping. You guys, I'm a fucking nicotine fiend. You guys are gonna have to fucking deal with it. You don't like it? Oh, too bad. Get the fuck off my fucking channel and my videos. I don't give a shit. I don't. You can save your fucking shitty little comments for the comment section, and I'll ignore it. You're better off just not wasting your time with me because I don't fucking give a shit. And if I get a wild enough hair up my ass, I'm gonna embarrass us both. I'm the type of asshole that if you go low, I'll drag us both to hell. I don't fucking care. Just getting that out there right now. This is the guy you're dealing with. Nicotine. Don't ever start, kids. You'll never be able to put it down. There are far worse habits to have. So, during one of his attempted crime, stopping sprees, he gets stabbed. It's, you know, shit. That kind of shit would happen in real life, right? Some asshole decides he wants to go be Batman and finds out real quick what would happen to Batman in real life. He's left bleeding out in an alleyway behind next to a dumpster behind a dive bar, where he is confronted by a shadowy entity that is, I don't want to give away too much of the story and the plot, but offers for him to become its avatar of justice and vengeance. And in return, it would bestow upon him the power to be able to follow through with his goals, his campaign, his crusade, and set the world right. Because the world is, I based it and very heavily in the kind of the world we live in today. It's a very fucked world, politically, economically, socially, and his whole thing is he wants to expose that corruption and set things back to the way it should be, clean up the world. Um, so that being said, it sounds a lot more like a villain, right? So I say superhero, but he's more of an anti-villain in terms of how his character actually is portrayed. Anti-hero slash anti-villain, because it's very nuanced. The good guys, quote unquote, the good guys. I mean, they are the good guys. They're superheroes. They think they're doing the right thing. They work. They're a government agency, a secret government agency full of people that were experimented on or had some freak accidents during experiments that gave them each powers of some caliber. Um, he will be interacting with some of these other characters as the story progresses. And I had actually originally written this game's story to be 4 different stories. It's all crammed into one. If I can manage to get the AAA version of the game out someday, sometime, and it's not even if, it's when. Whenever I manage to get that out, it will be a whole lot more expanded upon with the narratives. Well, I mean, the narrative is going to be the narrative no matter what, but it's going to be a lot more of a expansive project. And each of those 4 stories that I combined into this one project are going to get their time in the spotlight and released as their own individual stories. But for now, with this retro modern condensed version of it, I'm condensing all 4 of these stories into one. And this begins what I am. Sorry, I had some Del Taco was coming back on me. Um, I this will be the beginning of what I am referring to as phase 0 of my Omniverse project. There are so far 7 total phases that I haven't written them completely all out, but in terms of the actual basic plot, it's all plotted out. The A to Z of the A to Z is there, but the fine in between narratives, dialogues, all that shit, that still is in need of being written. But the basic plot of what the stories will follow are done from phase 0 up to phase 7. Um, that's and I'm currently working on phase 8, on plotting out phase 8. It's the hardest one that is for me to write so far, because it's essentially phase 8 is essentially a reboot, like a soft reset of the universe. Well, more like a hard reset of the universe, but not at the same time, because it's still following what happened before. We'll get to that when we get to that. But that's what I've got so far, and the Vengeful Spectre will be the very beginning of what I am referring to as phase 0. Um, phase 0 will only have a handful of titles in it. I only have right now a total of 4 that are planned. It's the Vengeful Spectre, the Patriot, Legends Echoes of Eternity, which I'm not completely sold on that title. I might change it to something else. And then My Last Anthem. And anyone who's been following me for years upon years upon years knows that game. That's my baby. That's the one I really, really want to get out, because that's the one that creates the Omniverse. That's the one that sets everything else into motion. Well, Vengeful Spectre sets into motion, but My Last Anthem is what is it's the spark. It's the big bang for the Omniverse. Um, and each of those games are going to be different in their own ways, besides the first 2. Vengeful Spectre and the Patriot are more or less going to be almost indistinguishable when it comes to indistinguishable. Sorry, I said that funny. In terms of gameplay. But the third one, Legends, which I might just change it to Vanguard, because that's who it's about. Vanguard is basically my and within this universe, it's what becomes my universe's equivalent to something like the Avengers, the Justice League, and so on and so forth. All the big A-lister superheroes coming together and stopping the big threat. But I'm developing that game as a kind of retro modern tribute to the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, where you'll be able to wander around areas, big maps, and you run a dungeon crawler, if you will, with superheroes, with a squad of 4 to 5 superheroes. I'm actually thinking because I can make it run with 5 without it causing any problems, as far as I've noticed in terms of me playing around and testing it. I think I might make it 5-man teams. But if I can't, it will be 4. And that will follow directly after the events of the Vengeful Spectre and the Patriot. And granted, that's probably going to be at least a couple years out, going based off of the way the rate of development I can feasibly do on my own. But I say a lot about because I have no script. I'm not the type of person to run off of a script when it comes to me being me. I don't like that shit. I don't feel like it's genuine. Um, I don't. I'd rather you guys just get a taste of who I am and how I am naturally. If I'm going to talk, and present myself as myself, um, I'm. I've got a. I took a lot of inspiration in the kind of person I am from Stan Lee. Uh, Stan was always my biggest role model ever since I was a kid. He's the one that got me into wanting to tell my own stories, um, which is why these superheroes were the first stories I ever wrote as a kid, and it's kind of it come full circle that it's going to be the first set of stories that I do as my video game projects. I actually didn't even make that connection until just now. Damn. Anyway, um, so the Vengeful Spectre will be uh, roughly. I want to say it's not. None of these games are really going to be super duper long, and that's why the development is going to be super short. Narratively, they will be pretty cram packed. That's where most of my development is going into actually, because the stages themselves, it's easy. It's literally just making one for the action stages, one flat, you know, map that just goes left to right with the start point and the end point. But it's all the scenes in between and all the voice acting and all the everything else. Those are the parts that are slowing me down, and those are the parts that are taking me the longest in developing. In terms of the gameplay, I could have this game done tomorrow if I really sat down and tried hard enough. I could have it done in terms of just playing the game itself with no story. It'd be done tomorrow. It would be done tomorrow, and it would still have about 4 hours of gameplay crammed into that with no story. Um, so that's what I'm where I'm sitting at. I'm pretty far along actually within the writing of the screenplay for Vengeful Spectre to try and get, like as I said, I want to have it voice acted over. I want to have full voice work done with this game. Um, so I want to say probably about 4 months away from being able to release that game. Maybe, maybe five. Just because and that's if I get my intention, my goal, my vision of wanting to have everything voiced over, and I land my voice cast within that amount of time and have everything recorded within that amount of time. At that point, it would just be whenever we finish up, because the development on the game is going to be almost nothing for me. Absolutely, but fucking nothing whatsoever. It's easy as shit. I could show you how to do it right now in this video, and you guys could probably make a game just as quick. It really is easy. Um, so I'm shooting for a. Originally, I had put the release date for My Last Anthem because I had decided last summer I was going to go whole hog on finishing at least the first act of that game. That game is going to be actually 4 different games itself, technically speaking, because it's going to have 4 different chapters. Acts is what I'm releasing it as, but it's 4 different acts of the game that I'm releasing individually because I just want to get it out as fast as possible so people can play it and enjoy it, and while I'm still in the middle of developing it, they can go through and play it as many times as they want, absorb the story as they're waiting between different releases of each act. Um, and Each of those acts are going to be pretty sizable themselves, about 20. It's going to be a big fucking game. It's going to be a big fucking game. The screenplay for just Act 1 alone, which is only 14 or 15. I think it's 15. I'd have to double check. 15 chapters. It has about almost 2,000 pages worth of dialogue. It's got a lot of dialogue. I've that game is going to be completely different from the other 3 projects I'm making. It is going to be more of a traditional Final Fantasy style RPG. That's what it started off as originally. Anyway, it was a Final Fantasy fan game project that I was developing that was supposed to be asking and answering the question, what if a Final Fantasy story happened in our world? And it's getting dark. I'm going to turn my lights on. Let me pause this for just 1 second. I know I don't like doing the whole cuts, but let me pause this for a second so I get some lights on, because the sun is going down very progressively right now. So, give me a sec. Okay, not much of a difference yet, but once that sun goes down, it will make a difference. But My Last Anthem it was originally developed to be a Final Fantasy fan game that I was calling. I can't say that it was My Final Fantasy, is what the title was, because My Final Fantasy is what became a different project later that I will be releasing later on in Phase 1, called Echoes of Fate. So there were two of these games started off as Final Fantasy fan projects that I was just so blown away by my own writing, where I went, oh my God, I can't just, it would be a disservice to what I have made, for it just to be a fan game. So I converted them into original IPs without having to change the narrative whatsoever, other than just taking out the bits that are directly referencing and any Final Fantasy, anything that belongs to the Final Fantasy IP, which wasn't a lot. It really wasn't a lot, and a lot of the Final Fantasy IP is a lot of what they use is based off of mythology anyway, mythology and religion. So there wasn't a whole lot of changes I had to really do with any of it, to make them work on their own. But in Act 1, I mean, throughout the whole thing, anyone who has ever grown up or even played a Final Fantasy game, period, if you're a fan, or even have only played 1 or 2 of them, you'll catch the references, you'll catch the influence, you'll catch how I pay homage to different projects different stories in that series within this project that I took an inspiration and influence for. But My Last Anthem is getting pushed off now, because I decided that I want to open up with Phase 0 rather than cram Phase 0 somewhere in between. Originally, I had planned to throw Phase 0 in about right in between Phases 7 and 8, but I'm starting with it now instead. Got to puff off my douche flute real quick. A little toot off my douche flute. Originally I was set for a June 21st, 2026 release. I am placing Vengeful Spectre in that release slot now. And following that, I am shooting for a December 2026 to February 2027 release for The Patriot. And then right behind that, in June of 2027, I'm shooting for the release of You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna call it Vanguard from now. Vanguard is gonna be. I might keep the Echoes of Eternity title because it is important to the narrative. But if you guys hear any kids yelling around, I am renting a house with my brother and his family, and he's got 3 kids, and they're all crazy. But yeah, so that's more or less the entire basic rundown of phase zero, without me getting into too many details. Um, and following phase zero, I'm going to kick it off with phase one. It's going to be the very first entry in phase one. Phase one is going to be a weird release slot. It's going to be a weird release sequence. I mean, because I am going with the more Kojima approach to it for phase one because it is important that I do. And it's not so much so. It's just it'll go back and forth a little bit, jumping back and forth between different parts of the timeline to set up events that happen in each individual story that eventually lead up to the end of phase one. That is the big crossover event where all the stories that have come up to that point come together and it ends that phase. I took a lot of influence in how I structured and am releasing these stories based off of how Marvel came hot out of the fucking gates with their Infinity Saga. I know now they're not quite so strict to their releases, to the phases and all that stuff. But Lord, now the dog's barking. Now the dog's barking. Give me a minute. I might have to. I might have to move. Depends on how I got pee anyway. I'll be back again. Hey, Jambles, you know what to do. All right, empty the tank. Let the dog outside. I'm ready to roll some more. And I just realized coming back just how much time I had spent actually just talking about my video game projects. But given how much I'm doing right now, God, those kids are crazy. Running all over the freaking house up there. But given how much I've got going on with those, it makes a lot of sense. But seeing as I only wanted to do this for about an hour, and I have spent a solid 45 minutes of that hour talking about nothing but my games, I'm going to move on to to some other topics really quick and try and even this out as close to an hour as I possibly can. Um, as stated, as I stated earlier on in the video, besides making games, I also make music. I'm a musician, singer, primarily these days, at least a metal vocalist, as well as a lyricist, and a song conceptualist. I can't exactly call myself a songwriter because I cannot write music. I don't know why. I have played guitar since I was 10 years old. I've played piano since I was about 7. I can't write music. I can't write music. And maybe it's because the way I learned how to play was always mimicking other people's shit rather than. I mean, that's how I learned to sing too, but with singing's different. I can write vocal parts and melodies for my vocals. For whenever I make a new song, that part's never hard for me. Um, I always know what kind of melody and what kind of vibe I'm going for vocally whenever I go into a song. It's just I cannot write music to save my fucking life. So I come up with the ideas for songs, and when I come up with the ideas for these songs, just based off of what I'm feeling when I sit down and write lyrics, I hear the entire composition of the song in my head. I just don't know how to yank that out of my head and make it real. So I've always worked better in group settings. Um, I've I've played with not exclusively as a vocalist, but I've played with about a dozen different bands in the state of Utah, from northern Utah all the way down to southern Utah. Um, and most of them really didn't go anywhere, to be quite honest with you. That's why used to is the key words there, because those bands were never really, I never found the right group of people that are um, driven enough to go for it the same way I want to go for it. Um, with the exception of three bands. Um, One I created myself with my buddy slash he was my producer as well, but my buddy Drew Lehman, of Drop Dead Productions. We created a band. It was more like a concept band, but we released music as under that concept band, Carina. We essentially have a whole EP that we recorded together, as well as a number of other songs that we never put out. I'm sure Drew's got some ideas and plans of doing something with those someday. But we have four songs that we have recorded and released together, um, under the name Carina. A lot of people mistake that because the spelling as Karina. It's not. It's a medical term, actually. Drew came up with it because originally that band was called In Blackest Night. I have since turned that concept band back around, yanked it back after we disbanded when I moved up here, and changed the name back to In Blackest Night. Um, and Trying to get that put back together myself, because, like Thanos said, I'll do it myself. That's where I am musically. Um, but the other two bands that I played with that were more notable was Foolish at Best, and they're more of like a hardcore. It's almost they're kind of a blend of traditional metalcore with modern hardcore. Um, with a little bit of melodic death metal thrown in for good measure too, because the guitarists, both guitarists in that fucking band, I don't want to drop names. Well, maybe I just don't want to wind up stepping on any toes, because I'm no longer with any of them, and I don't know how much I'm allowed and at liberty. And it wasn't really my bands. I was the hire, the vocalist for hire that they pulled in. Foolish at Best they were great. They were a great set of guys. There were some creative differences that led to me separating and focusing more on my Carina band, concept band. I didn't feel like was really I didn't really feel like I fit with the rest of the guys very well. And didn't feel like I had the room to collaborate any of my ideas. I didn't really feel like any of my ideas were ever really taken seriously. So eventually pushed me out the door and to go focus entirely on my Carina project. And following the wrap of our little EP that we did with Carina, I got myself in a similar situation with another band called While After We Die. I almost said While We Last. That was my brother's band. I was a founding member of, but they kind of fizzled out years and years and years ago. But After We Die, and those guys are all terrific dudes too. That's a situation that I am still really, really, really sad about how things ended, because it was beyond any of our control. It wasn't a matter of creative differences. It wasn't a matter of me not fitting in, because those guys were the perfect fit for me as a musician in terms of how the style of music we did and the influences we all, took after growing up, the different stuff we listened to, type of people we were even. Um, those guys are all terrific dudes and incredible musicians. Same with Foolish at Best. They were all fucking phenomenal musicians as well. There was just some creative differences and some egos that and I kind of tried not. I know as a vocalist you have to have a bit of an ego being the front man. I don't throw my ego around, and that's kind of probably on me. I'm like that in general. I don't really throw my ego around um, until I feel like I am not being taken seriously, and that's where the ego comes in, and I go, okay, well then, deuces, I'm out. No disrespect, no harm, no foul. It's just when I feel like I don't have room to thrive or shine, I just hit that dusty old trail and find greener pastures. Um, but I had to move. The story of how that band, how I split from that band was I had to move. It was right after we had wrapped everything with Kryna. We didn't really have anything else going on at the time. And we're waiting on Drew to go about finishing the post production and mastering on all of our songs that we'd recorded, and didn't really have much else for me to do, so I jumped myself into a band and had to basically uproot my entire life, go from southern Utah to northern Utah, and had to separate because of that. I still keep in contact with all of the guys from both of those bands. I keep in contact with all the guys. They're all great dudes. Don't get me wrong. I'm still some of my best buddies I've ever made in my entire life. Even in Foolish at Best, I don't hold any grudges or hard feelings against any of those guys. Like I said, they're terrific dudes. It's just when it comes to making music, there's egos get involved, and when certain egos cross, it doesn't really get pretty sometimes, and it didn't work out well. It didn't work out for me. It worked out well for them. They managed to find themselves a vocalist that fit perfectly with them. Same with After We Die. They found themselves another vocalist that works well with them. They're still doing some really terrific shit down there in southern Utah. But I got aspirations of not just playing the local circuit. I have this tongue-in-cheek joke that is not very tongue-in-cheek. Is pretty close to the damn truth. I always say Corey Taylor's my spirit animal. Slipknot's always been my favorite band, musically speaking. They are some of the most terrifically gifted and intelligent fucking dudes when it comes to the business of making music that are in the game, period, today, or have ever been in the game, period. Granted, there's a lot of greed that goes into that too behind the scenes, so I've heard. No confirmation. I don't take any sides on whatever the hell's going on between their band drama, but Slipknot is my goal, is basically what I'm saying. Slipknot is my goal. I want to be number 8. That's my goal as a musician. That's what I want to do. I've never really, my entire life, I have never saw myself being anything else musically other than number 8. That's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to be Corey Taylor's successor. But I grew up listening to them as soon as they came around in '99. I had heard about them, but I didn't start listening until Iowa came out because, my plague. It was My Plague. I almost forgot. How can I fucking forget? My Plague was featured on the Resident Evil movie soundtrack, the very first Resident Evil movie. And I had a copy of that soundtrack. Or, no, I didn't. My buddy Justin had a copy of that soundtrack. And that song sold me on them. So I went back, listened to all the rest of their shit on, going through the internets, the interwebs, and Napster. That tells you how old I am, despite my youthful appearance. I'm an old fart. But it wasn't until I had a bit of an existential crisis when I was facing the reality of becoming a father and still trying to understand how I worked, how my mind worked, how I function, and looking for inspiration from others that have been in similar situations as me that made it out in one piece. And I saw Corey Taylor had a book. I picked up a copy when I was just, you know, floundering on through somebody's bookshelf, just flipping through the pages, and I was like, just reading it. I was like, wait a minute, why the fuck does this sound? Does this read like something I would write if I was to sit down and write an autobiography? Why does this sound like something I would write? So I had seen his books up on Audible before, so I decided, because I had a free credit, fuck it, Seven Deadly Sins. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Let's give it a whirl. See what I get from this. And just listening to the first couple minutes of it, I'm like, why the fuck does this motherfucker talk like me? So I always say, because of that, I always say Corey Taylor's my spirit animal. Chester Bennington was my hero. Corey Taylor's my spirit animal. And Stan Lee was my role model. That's my holy trinity within my life of great honorable men that most of which are no longer with us. Corey, you're the last one standing. God damn you! You better hang in there. But that's it. That's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted that. My voice range is very similar to Corey Taylor's. It's funny. You guys can go ahead. I've got on my YouTube channel. I've got a bunch of my music as well as vocal covers. Y'all can be the judge for yourself. I get told all the time I sound like if Corey Taylor and Chester Bennington became one person. That's kind of who I am as a person too. If those two did the fusion dance, fusion ha from Dragon Ball Z, and became one person, or like the earrings, Patara earrings from Dragon Ball. These aren't Patara earrings, but anyway, if they became one person, really what it is, I've got a very similar vocal range to Corey Taylor, and I grew up in the same area of the world as Chester Bennington. He grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up in St. George, Utah, and they really aren't that far away from each other. And very similar accents, and that's where that comes from. Is I got a very fucking similar accent to Chester Bennington, but with a very, very similar vocal range to Corey Taylor. And so it's not like I ain't got the chops for it, Corey. If you're listening to this, if you somehow stumbled across this shit, man, I am your retirement. Go right off into the sunset like Ozzy already and let me take over. It's time. You're old. It's time for you to enter your Ozzy phase. It's time for you to enter your Ozzy phase, Corey. Talking to you right now. Fucking angry little leprechaun. I'm running this extra long too, so I'm going to end this segment about me talking about my music. You guys will probably hear more about that shit later, as a lot of that, actually, a lot of my stream of consciousness shit comes in form of me talking about music and musical inspirations a lot of the time. I quote song lyrics all the fucking time, left and right, too. Just in my natural speech. If you don't believe me, you got another thing coming. So I'm going to move on. I also mentioned I do YouTube Let's Plays. It's been a long fucking time since I've sat down and really tried to actually focus on that shit again. We used to run a channel, me, my brothers, and our best friends growing up, who are basically like my little brothers. Their best friends, my extra adopted little brothers, is basically what they are. We ran a show called Dudes of Rage. I originally started it with my buddy Mike from work, but it just didn't pan out. Mike wasn't able to really dedicate himself to any kind of recording schedule, and I was pretty serious about it. So I almost treated it like a job, even though we weren't getting paid yet. We would have specific times and days of when this person would be doing an episode, this person would be doing an episode, these two would be coming together to do something together, and we'd cycle through a bunch of us. Or at least that was what the goal was. I ran everything at first. When we last did our when we were last doing this stuff, it's been a while. It's been 2017 was the last time we gave it a real solid shot. Me and Peyton, my brother, tried to bring it back a little bit, and during COVID, during the lockdowns and all that shit, we figured we'd try and do it again. Just weren't able to. Again, lives got too busy to be able to have our schedules meet, so we just gave up on it eventually. But I'm coming back and doing it again by myself. At this point, I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be coming back and focusing on streaming, but I will be taking each of those streams. Each stream that I do, I will be uploading as individual episodes, uncut, episodic playthrough releases as well. So I will. My goal is to try and get a solid 2 to 4 hour long stream going, and then maybe do hour-long segments that I put out every couple days or so. But I will be coming back streaming on YouTube and Twitch, as well as TikTok if I can figure out how to fucking make that shit work. By streaming, doing a big fucking marathon of every Resident Evil game ever made. Because I went through my PlayStation catalog when I was thinking about doing this shit. I'm like, what can I play that would be I can make consistent content out of? And then I realized I have every single Resident Evil game that has ever been made on my PS4, from Director's Cut all the way to Resident Evil 8. I do not have Resident Evil 4 Remake yet, but that will be purchased by the time I get to it. Because I've been wanting to play it. I will be starting out with OG, and I'm all the remakes too. I've got every Resident Evil game that has ever been made. Revelations 2. I've got them all, and I'm going to be playing them all released canonically first. So I will be doing the original Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and then Code Veronica. And then from there, I will go ahead and rewind it and go to Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, and then Resident Evil 4 Remake. After Code Veronica, shit. Maybe I will do release order first. Well, not release order, but you got I that's tricky. That's tricky. Do I do the trilogy of originals and then do the trilogy of remakes and then Code Veronica? I will decide. I thought I had it planned out, but now that I've sat down and thought about it a little bit more, I'm like, huh, how do I want to do that actually? Um, because there's so many repeats of the same game remade. They've remade every single one of them up to Resident Evil fucking 4 now, besides Code Veronica. But Code Veronica will get thrown in there somewhere in the mix because to me that is the most important in terms of the story of where the rest of the Resident Evil games went after Resident Evil 3 that exists in the entire franchise. And it gets overlooked all the fucking time. And it's a terrific fucking game. It's a fucking wonderful game. It's probably one of my favorites out of the entire series. Um, I will be playing all those, but I will be starting out with the OGs. That's for certain. I will be starting out with the OGs, with the OG Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. I think that's what I'll do. I'll start out with the OG 1, 2, and 3, and then I will do Code Veronica following those. And then I'll go back and do Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1 remake, 2 remake, 3 remake, and 4 remake. No, but that still leaves 4. Okay, I'll do Code Veronica and 4 original because I have 4 original as well, the HD edition. So anyway, this is all just a bunch of me planning out bullshit that it doesn't. It's not important to any of you guys. But those are what I'm going to be starting out with. The way I do those is I I really loved watching Mystery Science Theater 3000 growing up, and I was always a big fan of Aaron Hansen, Ego Raptor, back on Newgrounds, and then naturally the natural progression when he went to Game Grumps, I was hot on the shit back when he was doing it with John, and I've stuck all the way through with Danny and all throughout these years. Granted, I don't watch as religiously as I used to, but when I still ain't got shit else to do and I want to sit down and have some funnies, I'll sit down with them and watch whatever the fuck they're playing, or just go back through one of their old playthroughs that I used to like watching back in the day. Um, that's the kind of style of gameplay I do. I don't like to do. I don't know if I'm going to be using a face cam. I don't really like people focusing. I don't like the reactionary type of YouTube stuff like the ooh whoa whoa. Did you bro see that chat? I don't like that shit. It's stupid. It's cringy. I fucking hate that shit. I just like I want people to be able to focus on my content, what I'm doing, what I'm saying. But I'm a goofball. I'm a goober, and I like to do stupid things with games. And I also rage a lot. Hence, hence the title. Hence my name. My I'm the Rage Master. Yeah, that actually came from YouTube, from me us doing the Dudes of Rage. Um, and that right there is a little tongue in cheek little name itself. I always liked playing Streets of Rage was one of my favorite games when I was a kid. And so I just put dudes because we're dudes, dudes of rage. um, and instead of like when we were putting that together, because I was trying to get the whole LLC put together for that under the name like Rage Inc. or something like that. Instead of the title of CEO or founder or anything like that, I was the Rage Master, and that is a little tongue-in-cheek thing to anyone who's ever watched the movie The Page Master, because that was one of my favorite movies as a kid. So I just turned the P into an R. um, but yeah, I rage at games, but I do so in a comedic way. I kind of lean into it when I start feeling like I'm getting mad at games. I lean into it for comedic purpose, for comedic purposes. Like I will intentionally take a hard swing right into the fucking and get beamed in the nuts if I have to fucking tell the joke. Um, I've damn near fainted on a fucking rage. I riled myself up intentionally so bad on an episode that we recorded that I damn near fucking fainted. And it was all me doing it intentionally, like purposefully, like, oh, I feel myself getting mad, now it's time to add the funnies to the mad. um and I worked myself up so much, and I was just ranting so hard that I had to stop between the episodes, because we used to do like 10-15 minute episodes. I had to stop and just catch my breath for like an hour. um but that's the kind of I grew up on Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey movies, and that's the kind of humor I have, especially with Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler has that like over dramatic, over the top, funny, angry man type of rants and shit. I I do the same. I do the same. Um, I just and I make goofy voices, and especially if I'm playing something that has to be read, I will change. I'm a voice actor, uh, ama- amateur voice actor. All my work has been done uh, on platforms I'm not even sure if they exist anymore. I know Newgrounds does, but there's a lot of content that got taken off of Newgrounds after the age of Flash died. Um, but if other little fan game projects that unfortunately ended up getting shit canned. Um, I do voice acting for my own projects. I've acted for my own movie projects. I've done acting gigs. I was a theater kid when I was in high school, so I like to act. I like to voice act. I like to make all sorts of goofy little voices and impressions. Um, and yeah, well, I mean, that basically sums up and wraps up everything I had to talk about. See, this is why I turned on the light. See how dark it got already? Um, this basically wraps up everything I had to talk about for this little introduction video. It went a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but not much longer. Um, yeah, I hope you guys had a fun time. If you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate the ever living fuck out of you, because I have never done this before. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. Here I am, again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Sorry. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. Oh my god, okay, I'm done. I'm done now. Okay. Thank you all for sticking around, hanging out with me. Go ahead, leave whatever feedback, whatever comments you got to say down below. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this shit. If you don't, cool, whatever. I don't give a shit. I'm doing this for me, not for you. But it would be nice if other people vibed with it too. Um, the other stuff is for other people. This is for me. These ones are for me. If y'all don't give a shit about this shit, oh well. I'm doing them anyway. Um, but I hope you guys had a good time. I hope we all learned something today. Maybe something useless, but something. Yeah? Yeah. All right. Well, just like I didn't know how to start this, I don't know how to close this. So, how about them Bears, right? How about them Bears? Fucking idiot.